Saturday. So that was a good introduction. Looking forward to speaking to prospective customers in this webinar series. In this particular session, we're going to cover what's new in next generation CASB. So we're going to talk through contents of one of our major releases that just happened towards the end of August. So we're going to talk through some of that and also answer questions as we take. We also have Nico, also from our product team, who's going to talk about a new product that we launched within our CASB offering today. So looking at what's new, this is a bunch of things. It's a very busy slide. I'm going to start covering it clockwise, starting with our unified inline policy between firewalls and also between Prisma Access. So there's the integrated SASE onboarding and integrated SASE console. So if you're familiar with the SaaS Security console that we've been using within the standalone user interface, we now have that as a part of the SASE console as well, which means if you're a current Prisma Access customer, you would see it within your cloud managed console, leading to even faster time to value. So you not only see NetSec-based configuration and policies, but you also see SaaS Inline, SaaS API, and SSPM policy management within the same console. So the third one is SaaS Security Posture Management. We currently support this for 30 plus applications, which is going to be the second part of the presentation where Nico is going to talk about the way we thought about it and how we solve for it and how to consume this product as well. And the next one is our brand new suspicious user activity offering as well, which is policy-less ability to track a baseline and flag outliers in terms of in terms of user activities. So, for example, if I'm a user and I see and as an admin, I see that this user is downloading more than average, like number of records from Salesforce, even without having a policy with a hard threshold, we're able to find out things like we believe this is an anomalous activity. So that could indicate either the malicious or a compromised users with credentials that's being used by someone else. Or say, for example, I'm trying to log in from 4 different parts of the world within a matter of 30 minutes. So impossible traveler, those kind of scenarios as well. Next one is automated workflow. So we had our XOR integration built into this product. We have a couple more things that's baked into the product directly, and also we've improved our XOR integration even more to be able to remediate incidents and so on from right there. So the next one is end user coaching and remediation. So this is the part that I meant is baked into the product. We now have powerful Slack integration, and through Slack bot, end users are able to either mark that something is not a violation or take care of the exposure right away. For example, if there's a sensitive asset that was shared, I, as an end user, if I made the sharing activity, I get an alert immediately saying like, hey, this happened. And the end user is by themselves able to take care of it right away by either deleting the file or just taking a look at it and say that this is business justified. This also reduces the workload on SOC teams to be able to deal with more critical or the ones that have not yet been handled by the end user kind of incidents. The next is about coverage. We've significantly improved our coverage, both on our inline and the sanctioned apps side. So I'm going to start with the inline coverage. We now have 45,000 plus apps that we get to see through the firewall, including Prisma Access. So what this means is we have risk coverage and also the ability to use fine-grained blocking or block-specific actions within these 45,000 plus app catalog. The next one is the coverage on sanctioned SaaS side, which is our SaaS Security API product. We now have 6 new collaboration apps, including an on-prem application, which is Jira on-prem. That brings us to our total to 27 apps today, which is the largest coverage in the market. And the next one is our DLP with more addition of machine learning and NLP policies, natural language processing based policies. We're going to cover some of that as well as we talk about contextual understanding of conversations. So moving on to the next slide, I'm going to go over each of these separately as well. Feel free to chime in your questions towards the end of the presentation. So first is the ML-powered SaaS application catalog. As you can see from the screenshots, the UI looks a little different from what you've been using with the standalone classic console. These are screenshots from our integrated console. I'm also going to do a quick demo of what we have on our side do a quick demo of the new solution itself in the new console. So we have discovered applications. There's a whole application dictionary, which now has the largest number of coverage that we've ever had. Like we've added over 20,000 plus applications on the inline app coverage. So this is everything that we see through the firewall, and we have risk score based on what we think their security hygiene and compliance standard is looking like. For example, here you see Zoom, which has a risk score of about 4. And it also talks about what compliances, what security do they offer, like what level of security features do they offer, and what compliances are they compliant with. Based on this, you're able to come up with this risk score. We have this catalog for the largest selection, and we have the ability to see this traffic through firewall or Prisma Access as well. So next one, moving on to sanctioned SaaS apps coverage. We have the industry's largest set of sanctioned apps. This is 27 applications. I've highlighted new and updated, so it seems like every other time there's something or the other going on. So when we talk about new, these are net new connectors. Towards late last year, we acquired a company called Gamma.ai, making a significant investment into our CASB product. So some of these applications were inherited based on that and fully integrated into our CASB product. And through which also the other functionality that we got is our near real-time connectors. So a lot of the updated connectors that you see have been updated and refreshed to support better remediation actions, or to be able to go even more real-time, so that it's almost like I post a violating message and within a couple of seconds, you actually get an alert. And with the end user feedback technology, it's even more awesome that I, as an end user, can remediate such data leaks like seconds after it actually happened. So as you can see, most of these new apps are collaboration-based apps. They're modern kind of scenarios where when people are collaborating today, they're not just using a long email or having a shared document that is within a sensitive folder with a confidential tag and so on. It is more about conversational context. It's really about having tickets to be able to interact between teams and stuff like that. So on that note, we added support for the Zendesk, Jira, and Jira Data Center. Jira Data Center is our first on-prem offering that is coming in coverage. Similarly, document management, Confluence has become the standard. There are also other applications that are coming through for this. So scenarios like being able to detect secrets that are stored statically in a Confluence document, which often can be externally exposed or exposed all over within the company and so on, rather than just having it for specific individuals. The second type of apps that you see are chat apps, where we have team support, and we also made further updates to our Slack Enterprise connector to make it even more real time. The other thing we see with chat apps is now they are becoming the new forms of communication, even outside of organization. Through Slack Connect, you're able to add external stakeholders that are able to collaborate directly with your employees. These could be contractors, these could be companies that you're partnering with. Then it becomes even more important to be able to monitor some of these conversations. Now it is, so if you have a public channel that is not just exposed to the company, but it's actually potentially exposed to somebody that is also on Slack Connect and is collaborating with your workers. And the other challenge with chat-based applications is it's not just like any other document for traditional DLP engines that scan and talk about, hey, if we see a regular expression match to a social security number, so this is an exposed document. We often do not have context when we talk about things like secrets. So people sharing passwords on Slack, for example, are private keys to sensitive databases and so on, often happens. Or the other scenario being using a post-it note to share passwords, often a common practice in some teams, where you're asked for a reset of a password and then you take a snapshot of a post-it note and they just put it on Slack. So we're able to detect all kind of these conversations. So it's not just about the connector itself. It's really about advancing our DLP engine with more machine learning and natural language processing capabilities to be able to understand complex, hard to understand things like secrets, which don't really follow like a regex pattern to go ahead and block with. Or if they do, it can be very, very highly false positive oriented. So we calculate things like secret through our machine learning algorithms, and also get the context of the whole conversation, not just a particular chat that is coming in through our NLP engine as well. On that note, Zoom also is increasingly being used as a chat application itself within organizations. The other cool thing that we do with Zoom is on recorded meetings, we actually run our DLP for transcript of recorded conversations. So, for example, a scenario where it's a telemedicine scenario and you have somebody reading out social security number or sensitive insurance information or HIPAA protected information, we can catch some of that behavior as well through our new Zoom connector. So that is everything on the expanded SaaS application catalog on the Sanctions SaaS side. So to be able to onboard each of them, you do it just like any other SaaS application that you onboard on SaaS Security today through the OAuth workflow. This is the biggest update that I have outside of what Nico is going to share is our new integrated user experience into SASE. So we now have a new console that we just released live for Prisma Access Cloud Managed Console customers, which is having an easy onboarding that goes seamlessly within the cloud management console itself. So you see SaaS Security and DLP like any other component of SASE. And you're able to now seamlessly use things like policy recommendations from SaaS Inline, go all the way up to the NetSec world and collaborate with administrators there and so on. And we've also made the onboarding guided workflow seamlessly integrate to that as well. So for example, if you have a Prisma Access instance, you would actually start seeing a lot of the SaaS Inline value right on day one, the day it's onboarded. So out-of-the-box data profiles, integrated data discovery, and also seamless integrated workflows, even across some of the silos that we had in the product previously. Like logging, alerting is all like now holistic and integrated within the same platform that you're familiar with from Prisma Access. I'm going to do a live demo of this quickly as well, but let's happy to take more questions over there too. So. Next one, data security built for modern enterprise. So this is in reflection to some of the modern paradigms that we're seeing when we talk about data security. First is really about best-in-class data detection. This is not net new. We already had support for EDM and OCR. We just brought support for these even within data address scanning for SaaS-based applications. We have advanced machine learning-based classifiers, which have significantly lower false positive rates compared to industry, and also natural language processing to be able to detect things like contextual conversation of secrets management and so on. And there are also thousands of inbuilt data patterns that previously came with the software as well. So, some of these are static, some of these are also tailored on top of what your needs are. And we also have the concept of data profiles, which are a bundle of data patterns to make you be compliant on day one. So for example, if you use the GDPR data profile, you can be sure that it has all the data patterns that comply, that forms the GDPR expression. So hard to detect secrets such as passwords and API keys and unstructured chat data. This is becoming an increasingly common problem in modern enterprises, where we are having these passwords being structured around. And oftentimes it could be a public channel, sometimes it could be just a direct conversation. So depending on where your governance policies are, you could choose to block it entirely, or you could choose to, for example, just look at exposure on specific channels and stuff like that as well. The last but not the least, I want to talk about user-led remediation. There's a team that I've been talking about through the previous slides as well. So this is through our Slack bot, and I'll also try to cover this on a live demo today, where the moment a violating message is posted, the end user gets this notification like any other bot that you used to. Like it could, like it's just the way, for example, it shows up on Google Calendar when you have an appointment. It shows that, hey, there's a potential violation that has been detected, and the end user has the full context of what's going on. Like, it talks about what was the particular specific content that was found, and they're able to go back and view the file and either mark it as not a violation, in which case it can go to a special status, or you could just delete the file then and there and take care of the violation right away. So this really helps, based on what we have gotten from feedback, helps SOC teams to reduce their workloads significantly smaller, because most users are likely well intended. They just are sometimes careless when it comes to sharing sensitive information. And we see that this is really addressed to capturing such users. So if I'm just not careful and I get an alert like this, and I understand that, okay, hey, this is what happened, and I go take care of it right away. We've seen some feedback that they're incorporating this into their end user education as well, where they talk about, once they see this, they are actually aware that this doesn't need to happen the next time, and they're actually more cautious when they share sensitive content the next time going forward. So that's largely what we had on the end user side. There's one more new feature that I want to talk about, and it's also only available in our new cloud management console as well. This is about detecting suspicious user activity, both from malicious and from compromised accounts. We have very specific risk events that we cover in this scenario, which talks about things like impossible traveler, or bulk download of files, or bulk delete, and stuff like that. So very specific scenarios, but the salient feature of this is we have a baseline that we know of the user and of the team based on what our understanding of the product team is. And once we form the baseline, we try to look for elevated activities from the baseline to be able to give this alert. It doesn't need to be like a policy that is configured from scratch, but it's really just coming up based on what we've built as a risk profile and the baseline, and to say that these are suspicious activities that is over and above the baseline. So we do advanced behavior analytics to identify high-risk user activity, things like sharing credentials and stuff like that, and even bulk download and so on. And we've seen that this is also useful for user activity auditing, to be able to all the raw data that goes into this analysis is also available to you when we talk about every user activity that you want to monitor through API and Sanctions Apps. It's all available here too. So with that, I want to quickly move to a quick live demo for about 5 minutes, and before I hand it over to Nico for his presentation on our new product, SaaS Security Posture Management, SSPM. So this is our brand new console that I wanted to show off and talk through more about. So this is our Prisma Access Cloud Management Console. So everything that we see under discovered apps is all what we see on inline traffic. And just the way you were able to do this on standalone console, you'll be able to dig deeper into any specific application, its risk profile, what its compliances look like, and also make policy recommendations and changes on the NetSec rules to say that if you wanted to block access, or say, for example, if you wanted to enforce more fine-grained DLP control in here. Moving to data security, which is in the sanctioned SaaS apps world, it's We have a holistic dashboard that specifically talks about all the data assets and what level of exposure do they have, what's the kind of data profiles that we have, who are the top owners that are making things around here, and also look at user activity and policy violation controls as well. And we have all the data assets that go into each of these. We have a lot of CloudTrail logs, which likely has secrets in this scenario. So I can look at any specific data asset, look at how it was exposed, what's the level of exposure that you always used to have, and also oftentimes have permalink to the same apps. So we've added similar consistent filter and sorting approaches across the board over here as well. Same with user activity. So this is all the monitored users that's coming in that we get to see from our sanctioned SaaS Apps side. We know who these users are, and based on your configuration of their internal external users, the number of assets that they've owned, and the assets that they've collaborated on. And so you could sort and filter based on that, based on these as well. And we also have our policy behavior, which we've streamlined it and made it even more clearer to come through right now. So you're able to create a policy with specific cloud app and make things like auto remediation action based on whatever is, for example, a combination of exposure and whatever data patterns and profiles that they're ahead for. Last but not the least, I want to show off our Slack demo quickly to show the end user notification and activity. So I'm going to have to share my whole screen for it. Just a second. So let's say, for example, I have this screen on Slack. And I'm sharing some credit card information. I already have some public-facing files. So here, so I'm going to share this one. I immediately see my alert count change to 2. And I'm going to look at this bot to see what really happened in here. So it says what was the InfoSec violation, and it found that it was a credit card number. I'm going to go take a look at what this was about. Okay, well, I shared some credit card number. Let me go back to the bot to understand what this is really all about. Okay, I realized that I shared something by mistake. I want to make sure I just delete it at this point. And both the alert and the actual message that went into this went away. So that's a quick gist of what we do with the Slack bot. And as an admin, you also have a specific channel to which you can choose to get this notification as well. So this has to be a private channel, and it's configured in the user interface. Then you now are able to look at the dashboard to see what was the violating content and so on. So that's a little bit of a gist of what is new with NG-CASB. Happy to go deeper into more details in further webinars, but otherwise we'll take questions towards the end. Nico, do you want to take it away from here?
Will do. Thank you, Raj. Let me just share my screen. All right. So, hi everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Nico. I'm the product manager for our new SaaS Security Posture Management product, and I'm looking forward to sharing with you all what we currently released and talking a little bit about some of the innovation that we've brought to market with SSPM. So to start off, I first wanted to talk about what is the problem we're trying to solve with SSPM. If you ever have a chance, you can do a quick Google search and you'll see tons of stories around large enterprises that have been affected by SaaS misconfigurations. And so we know from speaking with customers and from doing our own due diligence that this is a problem that's important, and that we were really excited about solving and have been able to solve in a new and innovative way. So what are some of the indicators that SaaS misconfigurations are becoming a growing problem for enterprises? The first one is the number of apps that enterprises are using. The average large enterprise is now using over 100 sanctioned SaaS apps, with each one of these apps being very unique. And so it becomes really hard to keep up if you're a security team to make sure that everything is properly configured, which then leads to the second pillar, which is that each one of these apps can be configured in a very nuanced way. A lot of the times the security settings are not optimized for security teams. And so this increased app complexity can cause settings to be configured in an insecure fashion, which ultimately can lead to a misconfiguration. And then the third pillar is that given that it's super easy for SaaS apps to be spun up and used, this makes it really hard for collaboration, or I should say, it's caused an inefficiency in communication between security teams and IT teams, and this lack of coordination has ultimately led to misconfigurations happening and then not getting detected for a long time. So the takeaway here is that from Gartner and from our own research, we know that the vast majority of these cloud security failures will be caused by a human error, essentially a preventable misconfiguration. But for the reasons I just mentioned, these misconfigurations continue to exist. So what are some of to dive a little bit deeper, what are some of the unique challenges to elaborate on the first slide that I spoke about? The first one is that there are a lot of nuanced settings in each one of these apps. Each app is unique. And so if you aren't a subject matter expert on a specific app, it can be a very tedious process to go through and make sure that everything is properly configured. In a similar fashion, given that each one of these settings is very specific to the app, it takes a lot of research to understand how it should be configured. What are the impacts if it's not properly configured? Is it satisfying company and compliance policies? And so when you have to go and do that for tens to hundreds of sanctioned SaaS apps, there's just not enough, there's no existing process in place to make it efficient at scale and to make sure that everything is secure all the time, which then it ties in nicely with the third pillar of these apps can change a lot. Admins can make changes, vendors can make changes. And so if there's no way for you to make sure that you're staying on top of the config changes, these misconfigurations can exist, and it can take a long time before they're actually found and then fixed. So the takeaway with SSPM and the challenge here is that a lot of CASBs we've seen them overlook really the crux of securing SaaS, which is the actual app itself. Of course, data security is important. We certainly believe in that solution as well. We certainly believe that a combination of both data and posture security is critical for securing your SaaS app. But if you're only looking at data security, you're really overlooking the foundational element of securing SaaS, which is how do I make sure that the app is properly configured in such a way where I don't need to be relying on my data security policies before it becomes operational. So excited to share with you all our new SSPM product just launched at the end of August. And so a few key things that I want to call out with SSPM that make us different and why we believe this will be a differentiating capability as part of our CASB solution. The first one is app coverage. We are currently we've launched with over 30 apps, and our plan is to get to 100 apps by the end of the year, because we believe that we live in a world that we're no longer just using, as an enterprise, we're no longer using 5 SaaS apps. We really need a solution that can scale, that can secure all your SaaS apps, so that you're not just bound to coverage on a few critical ones that we've seen a lot of other players work with. The second pillar is going beyond compliance. Rather than just looking at some of the settings that are listed on a compliance framework and making sure that those are properly configured, we want to understand what are all the settings and features that could possibly impact the security posture of your SaaS app. And so this depth, not only this breadth, but depth of coverage makes it a critical call out for our SSPM. And then the third one is our prevention first approach. We've done a lot of heavy lifting to understand how these settings should be configured, and to make it that process even smoother, we've added one-click remediation or API-driven remediation to make it really easy. So once an issue is found, to provide the user with context as to how it should be configured, and then for the settings where it's possible, allow them to just click one button and then have us go and make that change so that they don't have to go through and trudge through all the different the nuances of the admin console. Excuse me, the admin console to figure out what to configure the setting to. So and then the underlying pillar of all these capabilities is that, as Raj mentioned, it's integrated into our SaaS console to make it really easy to not only see your posture security, but then all the other modules of our CASB and data security. So I'm going to get to a demo in a second, but I want to elaborate on some of the callouts I just made. So the first thing is our operational dashboard. We have support for over 35 apps, and we make it really easy for our users to understand where their policy violations exist. We benchmark all of the SaaS applications against security best practices. And so we don't want to just list out a bunch of widgets. We actually want to help our users take that next step. And so via this operational dashboard, we make it really easy to understand where they should be focusing their action. The second call out is our remediation capabilities. So as I mentioned, this is where you can see you can have the one-click remediation, but then something else that is very innovative about our SSPM is that we don't just list out the alerts row by row. So we don't want to give our users alert fatigue. We've actually grouped the security settings across multiple apps together by security area via our new security posture security policy engine. And what this does is it makes it easy as a security admin to understand what are all the settings that span my SaaS apps and my security settings that span my SaaS apps, and where do they all sort of fit nicely within the world of SaaS. So say you're looking at security settings regarding session timeouts or session settings across your Salesforce, ServiceNow, and Office, rather than just give you a table of a bunch of settings where they're all mixed in. We've actually said, okay, let's look at let's derive this best practice security outcome. And then what we'll do is we'll nest all those settings underneath that sort of overarching policy so that you have a good understanding of what are all the settings in the security area across my apps. And I'll elaborate a little bit more on that in the demo. And then lastly, drift prevention. One of the main things I mentioned earlier is that these apps can be changed pretty easily. Admins can come in where you have a lot of hands in the cookie jar. Admins come in, they make changes. They might not understand what the impact of that change is. And so with drift prevention, we allow for the user to go lock that setting in place to prevent someone else from going in and then changing the setting, whether that's oftentimes on accident. So now I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and then I'm going to pull up our demo and then walk you through a typical scenario that we see with that we know our customers are going to be leveraging SSPM for. So as I mentioned, here's our dashboard. We'll make it super easy to figure out where your issues exist and where you should be spending your time. And it's all aligned with our posture security policy engine that I called out. So now let's take a deeper look into one of these policy violations. Here, the user can see all the policies that have failed, the apps that they're affecting, the category that they're a part of. And so just to take an example, let's look at a policy violation that has to do with sharing permissions. As I mentioned, here are all the settings that have to do with sharing permissions across all the SaaS apps that have been added to this instance of SSPM. And so this it makes it really easy to understand the world of SaaS security so that you're not just looking at a table of security settings. All these have been grouped by security area. But let's look at one example in particular. So let's go to Salesforce. Let's look at one of our session timeout issues that exist. And so you'll see here, okay, this security best practice states that all apps should require reauthentication. We give a little bit more security context around why this is important. And we notice that there's a setting right here in Salesforce that's misconfigured. So in this case, we know that the current value is set to false. We recommend it be set to true. And really remediating this is as easy as click remediate, confirm the change, and now you can see it submitted. And then really to top it all off, as I mentioned, if we want to prevent someone from going in and changing the setting in the future, all they have to do is enable drift prevention, and now someone else who has access to the Salesforce console can't go in and change the setting. We will, if they do, we will detect that change and then revert it back to the golden state. So one of the key things with SSPM as well is that our app coverage, this is just an example of some of the apps that are currently onboarded to this instance. But if you go to add application, you can see that we have support for a number of apps, and we are continuously adding new apps every week with our goal of getting to 100 apps by the end of the month. And that is SSPM. So I'll stop sharing my screen, and then I'll go back to one second. All right, and I will hand it over to Azadeh.